What a delight it is to meet you, James. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit about the new movie that they're actually playing right now.
Watershed.
Yes.
Well, Watershed is a 52-minute documentary that really explores the issues that are facing the Colorado River and the entire watershed of the Colorado River Basin. Namely, that we're running out of water right now. We've got growing population and decreasing supply. And if we just continue to stumble forward the way we have been, we're going to have some real problems in the future. So what the film does is educate and present the problems and present some solutions to get people inspired to take action now so that we're not operating in a crisis environment 20 years from now.
And where can people view the movie, apart from tonight?
Right. Well, you want to go to
watershedmovie.com.
Okay.
And we have a screenings calendar. We've been gifting the film to anybody that wants to host a community event. So that's where we've had over 250. There's, it's slowing down, I think, because it's the summer and people are traveling. But there's also, you can buy it.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally and heartily support it because I think it's a fabulous.
And you can also learn more about what we're doing at the Redford Center at our website, redfordcenter.org. Because this approach to creating content that helps people engage and inspires them to take action is sort of what we're all about.
Yeah, really. And I really liked what you said about the fact that your family is a family of storytellers. And I was wondering if you could tell me or possibly give some advice to all the entrepreneurs out there that would be tuning into this about storytelling. How can they tell their story effectively? It's so important in our ecosystem for an entrepreneur to be actually able to tell their story. Obviously, I've used the medium of video and photography, but I'm just wondering what your tips would be to an entrepreneur about how to tell their story.
It's important to tell the truth.
Okay.
Seems like an obvious thing.
Okay. But many people miss it, right?
Right. It gets sidestepped in so many complicated ways. There's so many understandable reasons, but you really have to spend some time figuring out who you are, what is genuinely you, what you have to offer that no one else has to offer, and stay focused on that. What I've noticed with successful entrepreneurs is they tend to have a keen eye for what's missing. What is the need, and what in me, where's the connection between what I best offer and what's the greatest need, whatever that product or process may be. So, but if you stay true to something that is truly inspires your passion, your curiosity, and it's something you would want to do regardless of whether you succeed or fail, it's how you want to spend your time on that effort, it's going to free you up to do really good work. If you're coming into it with the end in mind, if I can just get to that deal, then all is well. You're never going to get there.
I lived in Ireland for about 9 years, and of course they're famous, the Irish, for storytelling.
Yes.
and music.
Yeah.
So I am fascinated about that piece, and often the venture capitalists tell me that that is the most important piece for an entrepreneur, that they can actually tell a story. That is what will really engage people.
Yeah.
What do you think is the secret in that actually pulls other people into your sphere?
Well,
What is it what's magic, I guess, is the question.
Well, Jim and I, when we were, we set out to decide how are we going to tackle this issue about the Colorado River. How are we going to engage people? And after the conference that we had in 2009 at the Sundance Mountain Resort, where we convened stakeholders engaged on the issue with water in the West, the realization was that there was a need for a baseline understanding of what the issue was. And there's so many ways you can go about trying to reach people. For us, it was a matter of really connecting to people that live their lives there, that have personal stories to tell about their lives on the river. Go to the river itself. I mean, I think there was even a moment where we were talking, wouldn't it be great if the river itself had a voice?
Yeah.
To tell its own story about everything.
Yeah.
So, second to that are the people that really know it and truly live there. The film profiles people that live along the river, all the way from the headwaters in the Rocky Mountain National Park, all the way down to the Sonoran Desert. So rather than necessarily relying on really credible and talented sort of experts, who definitely have their place in these kinds of stories, sort of turned it around and let the people tell the story. And I think that's been something that's engaged the public, is hearing from their fellow citizens and being able to relate personally to that person. I think a lot of times when people forget, entrepreneurs can forget that they're actually just talking to other people, you know, that they all go home and have the same frustrations and dreams and desires. So trying to connect on a personal level, I think, is a really important thing.
Yay. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the Redford Centre, maybe give us a bit more insight into how the motivation and what's really important in the centre.
Yeah, so the Redford Center is it's a nonprofit, and the mission of the organization is to use film to tell these stories that drive action and change. We never make a film without making sure it's hitched to an action item, something that people can actually do. We make the films hoping people will be motivated and inspired, and then giving them something to actually put their energy into, new insights that they can have for themselves. That's always the goal for us. And so, as Jamie was describing, we really try to understand where in the issue we can make it more relevant to people in their day-to-day lives. And I think that's getting back to the storytelling piece. That's what it is. It's sharing these stories with people from a very human place. And that, I think, has been what has helped us have success in the films that we've done, and just trying to tell a little bit of a different narrative that doesn't speak over people, but really speaks directly to what they're dealing with in their day-to-day lives. And if you let people tell their human story, we're pretty fascinating creatures, and I think other people find that's interesting in and of itself. So.
And it also brings that realisation to me anyway, that we're all sort of the same, we're all together, we're all one, you know. I think that's what keeps coming back to me, I guess. So,
yeah, and I think for the issues we tackle are typically environmental issues. We always understand there's a social component to environmental activism, whatever you want to call it, because you can't do that work without considering the human impact. And the people most marginalized in our society usually feel that the worst, and so we're trying to also kind of reframe the environmental story and make sure that that piece of it is always in there. And those issues can be, thought of as very special interest, exclusive. I can't afford to spend time about that or care about that. And so I see part of our role in the work that we do is to change that thought process. And so we often look for characters in our films that aren't typical lefty environmentalist or aren't thought of that way, so that we can start to understand this is actually just about life. This is just about creating a decent future for all of us. So that's another big driver for the work that we do.
And I noted that you obviously believe in climate change, and my personal orientation towards that is I went back to Australia, which is where I originally came from, in 2009, and I thought if anyone doesn't believe in climate change, they should go to Australia and see what is happening there, because we have such extremes. And they had just had the Marysville fires where people were incinerated in a whole town, and then they were having floods for like 6 months. And I thought, in Europe, where I had been living for 11 years, some people didn't believe in climate change. So I'm wondering what your standpoint is on that.
Well, I have
controversial.
I had an interesting moment in Colorado recently at a screening. I asked folks, how many of you in this audience, either because for personal reasons or professional reasons, spend a lot of time outdoors? And almost everyone raised their hand. Either it's your work, or it's your love, or your play. And I said, how many of you feel you've directly seen changes in your lifetime? And almost the same people raise their hands. And then the question is, okay, so we're all seeing this, and why? What is it that's preventing this from just becoming a deeply known fact? We all know it, right? What are those forces? And that's where the media comes into play. And this business of quote unquote balanced journalism that's sort of pervaded a lot of the network news, which is that any issue you have to give a balanced presentation, quote unquote, meaning that whatever the issue is, you give equal voice to the pro and the con on the situation. And what I believe that is due to the shrinking amount of money that is going into the production of news shows and the proliferation of platforms for content, there isn't the sort of dedicated, hard-working editorial work being done, particularly with television news. So it's a very quick and easy way to have a formula in place. This is how it's done. But do we ever ask ourselves, what if this issue is not a pro and con issue? What if it's just the truth?
Fact.
And so when you give equal weight to something because one person feels this way and 99 feel that way, but the news presents it as an equally balanced story, who's creating the problem there?
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you both for your time tonight. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. It's been fantastic meeting you and hearing about the movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.